Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, January 17th, 2019, and we're going to be looking at a 2020 presidential election prediction between Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and President Donald Trump. Had to think about it for a second. And we're going to be using the customized electoral map. I'm going to be talking about it later in a separate video, but for today it's just going to be used. It is looking a little bit different every single time I use it, considering that I do upload like once every 2 days, I guess. That's really good growth in terms of where it was before. If you look at my original video with it, definitely a lot of improvements from then to now, but it's probably going to change just a little bit more, and then once I actually make a video about it and get permission to do so, then it's going to be, I guess, out there. So a lot of you have already seen the website before, whatever, but that's not the main point of this video. Kirsten Gillibrand announced recently that she's forming an exploratory committee for President of the United States, which essentially means she's going to run. She's going to announce pretty soon, actually, that she is going to officially run. I know with all these people with exploratory committees, they're probably not going to have these super formal announcements. I mean, they have the committees, they've sent out political ads. They're essentially just gearing up for the presidential election. Most of these people who have these exploratory committees are going to run. They are not going to just all of a sudden drop out because they realize that they can't win, or they may not have the best of a shot as they thought originally. Most of these people, they are just going to run. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, someone like Elizabeth Warren is not going to drop it. But Kirsten Gillibrand, Elizabeth Warren, Tulsi Gabbard, and I believe Kamala Harris is going to announce on MLK Day, and Julian Castro and John Delaney. Those are the 5 people that have held political office that are announcing that they are going to run for President of the United States in 2020. And when I say political office, I mean national, U.S. House, U.S. Senate, governor type thing. But she's an interesting character, to say the least. A lot of people like to closely relate her to Secretary Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton gave up her seat in New York to become Secretary of State, and I guess who took her seat? Gillibrand. She took the seat from Hillary Clinton, was nominated, then won her election, her first ever election, and she has a pretty good approval rating in the state of New York, not like it matters. And looking at her, she seems like a pretty strong candidate. A lot of people after 2016 quickly looked to her because Hillary Clinton was still in the, political atmosphere. Everyone knew who she was. Everyone still knows who she is. But Kirsten Gillibrand is a lot like Hillary Clinton. I can definitely agree on that. But she has had some flip-flops in the past, as has Hillary Clinton. But looking at some of these, it seems like she's getting a little bit more left-leaning than where she was before. And if you just look at where the country is going to, the country is taking a little bit more of a direction into the more progressive, I guess, dabbling in the progressive area for some of these candidates. But I wouldn't necessarily say go too far as Kirsten Gillibrand, I'm sorry if I've been saying it wrong. Bernie Sanders left, but I wouldn't exactly say that she's very centrist. Hillary Clinton wasn't too centrist either, but she was definitely related to being a centrist, and as is Gillibrand. But again, that's not going to make too much of a difference. Looking at these candidates' ideologies is only going to make a big difference in the Democratic primary. Once you leave the primary stage, almost all of these candidates always come closer to the center because they need to win the independent vote. But again, there's always arguments that people like Bernie Sanders can win with the independents without going closer to the center, whatever. That's not what the main purpose of this video is. So we'll start off with all the states that are safe for Gillibrand. That includes the West Coast, going up to her home state in New York, then going all the way across the, north. District of Columbia, the state of Maine with its first district, I would characterize as safe for Gillibrand. Illinois would be safe for Kirsten Gillibrand. For Donald Trump, we go to a number of these GOP stronghold states. Nebraska's second district, I would characterize as a toss-up just for now. Texas, we will come back to. Looking at this electoral map, almost all these states are going to be safe for Donald Trump in the 2020 presidential election, and with good reason. Almost all of these states have stayed the same since the year 2000 or before then. The last time a Democrat won in the South would be Bill Clinton when he won Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky, and Florida. But keep in mind, the last Democrat to do pretty well in the South, and when I say pretty well, I mean like closer margins, would be Barack Obama with Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida and that's pretty much been it for the Democratic Party. So the South's really out of reach, especially for someone like Gillibrand. She's not going to win there, to be completely honest with you. But she will be winning in some states that we can characterize as likely states. But for Donald Trump, since he is behind right now, we're going to characterize some likely states that we already know that are going to go to the GOP. Texas is a likely state for Donald Trump. You know he's probably going to win here. We're actually going to adjust one of the ratings. South Carolina is probably going to be likely, regardless of who the Democratic candidate is, because it's just narrowed down in recent years. Likely going to narrow down now. Kansas, you can argue, but mainly with progressives who can appeal in the area that I'm circling. So South Carolina, Texas, likely states for the GOP. I would characterize Georgia as well as a likely state for Donald Trump. Just because this state itself has held its Republican identity. Likely state in 2016, likely going to be a likely state. That's interesting, that wording, in 2020. But for right now, Georgia I would characterize as a likely GOP state. In terms of likely Democratic states, New Mexico, Virginia. These states have these, this Democratic base that has consistently voted in previous elections, 2016, 2017, 2018, and probably going to be 2019 when you look at some of those state things up in this year. But looking at Virginia and New Mexico, no reason why the Democratic Party should lose support here, especially looking at the president's approval rating. A new poll came out from the Huffington Post. Take it how you will. 57% of Americans say they will not back Donald Trump for re-election. It's 57% of voters. Sorry. That's not at all a good sign. I'm not saying it's completely accurate, but it's just interesting that comes out very, very recently. And that definitely says a lot about Donald Trump. Colorado would also characterize as a likely Democratic state. We know that state's probably going to be likely for Kirsten Gillibrand. She's probably going to be likely in Minnesota, one of the 4 states here that Hillary Clinton won, the only one, and it's probably going to be in a likely margin, just based off the 2018 election results and looking at the trend for the president. Not approved of here. Narrow margin for Clinton in 2016, which means that the Democratic Party still won the state. And looking at a couple of other factors, Gillibrand likely will push this one over 5%, and also a lot of Democratic nominees definitely could. Going over to some lean GOP states, actually no, we'll go up to the Northeast where I'd characterize Maine at large as a likely state, and then the 2nd district narrowly in the lean column, and then we've officially gone into lean states. So Nebraska 2nd district I would also characterize as a lean district. Even though it has gotten closer in previous election years, there's no real sign that it's going to go to the Democratic Party in 2020. Looking over to the Sun Belt, Arizona is probably going to be a lean state for Donald Trump, whereas Gillibrand will carry Nevada by a lean margin, putting her at 228 and Donald Trump at 192. That leaves a total of 118 contested electoral votes. Well, going up to the Northeast, I would say that Kirsten Gillibrand would do pretty well in New Hampshire, enough to put it into the lean column, giving her 4 electoral votes. Now she's officially out where Hillary Clinton was in 2016. 232 electoral votes. If you deduct all the faithless electors, 227. Donald Trump got 306. Again, faithless electors down to 304. But still, looking at this electoral map, it's looking pretty good for Gillibrand, considering that she's improved in a number of areas Hillary Clinton did not do well in. Well, she did do well. She won these areas, but she did not necessarily win them by good enough margins. It says something about a couple of the closer states, and I'm pretty sure you all know which ones we're talking about, but we're going to start by finishing off in North Carolina, characterizing that one as a lean Republican state. That state has held its identity, through and through. Even though the Democratic Party did well here in 2018, Gillibrand is not the one for North Carolina. Florida, I would also characterize as a lean GOP state. Donald Trump, I really think, can hold on to his base there and just narrowly take out the win there. Gillibrand, I do not see appealing in the South. Going over to Ohio and Iowa, I would characterize both of these states as lean GOP states. That has narrowed down from 2016 because I do think Gillibrand can do a little bit better in terms of performance around this area, but still wins for the GOP regardless. I mean, a win is a win. The margins really don't matter unless it comes down to a recount, and then even then, if you're just pushing for an electoral mandate, maybe then. But still, Obama won in Indiana, Obama won in Ohio, Illinois, Iowa, North Carolina, Florida, a number of these states that were previously GOP states, and nobody really questioned the margin. Even though they were narrower, they did not care that much. Typically, only the losing side points out the margin, or if someone narrowly won a state, they do like to point that out, but it's still a win. I mean, it's still colored in solid once you get to the finalized electoral map. So when the electors vote, they aren't voting in a lean red margin. They're voting in a safe red margin, 16-0 if we took Michigan, for example, or 18-0 if you took Ohio, for example. But for Gillibrand, I really think she's going to do pretty well in the Rust Belt. I think it's enough to flip all 3 states. And Donald Trump currently has -6 approval rating in Pennsylvania, -12 in Michigan, -12 in Wisconsin. No real good signs for him here. Flip in the governorship in Wisconsin. That's interesting. Wisconsin and Michigan. Pennsylvania was a hold in the Senate. Gains in the House. Even though Pennsylvania is probably the weakest area for Democrats at this point, just based off the fact that they approve of the president more than the other 2 states, you still need to watch all 3. But I do think that the Democratic Party can narrowly flip back these 3 states with a candidate like Kirsten Gillibrand. And then that finalizes our electoral map. 278 electoral votes for the Democrats, 260 for the GOP. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.